first destination on our Andalusian road trip, Seville.
Welcome to Andalusia in the south of Spain. We're here for history, scenery, and the beauty that Spain has to offer.
And we are joined by some very special guests. In case you are new here, we're Katie and Dan, and we are currently exploring the south of Spain with my parents. We've been working and exploring throughout Spain and Portugal for the past month and a half, and we're finishing off this epic adventure with a road trip through Andalusia and Gibraltar.
We made it to Seville just in time to see Plaza España before sunset. This giant plaza was built for the World's Fair of 1929. It took them more than a decade to build it. It's a beautiful square meant to represent the different regions of Spain and to try and incorporate some of the architecture that is particular to Spain.
Wow, this is cool.
The end result is a colorful mishmash of decorative elements and beautiful architecture. That's a great starting point for our time here in Seville. This square is beautiful, and it ought to be because they spent $9 million just over a decade ago restoring it, and I'm sure they spend a lot every year to upkeep it as well.
So we've been seeing these horse and carriages going all around Seville since we got here, and Dad was just too intrigued. So
we've splurged.
We're gonna go for a carriage ride.
On a horse ride. Sunset carriage ride.
Yeah,
look at us
it's
go.
Beautiful.
Alright, we are in the heart of Seville, and we are about to go on a guided tour of the Giralda, the Cathedral, and the Alcazar. These are the top sites of Seville, and we're seeing them all in one afternoon. We got our earpieces like we're bodyguards or something.
And we're ready to start our tour.
The group's all here. Everybody's ready for the tour. Just while we're waiting for our tour to start, I thought I should tell you how wonderful Seville smells this time of year. The orange blossoms, they're white blossoms coming out on their orange trees. They're just decorative orange trees. The fruit doesn't taste good, but the smell of those blossoms is incredible. And pretty much wherever you go in this town, you can smell that wonderful orange smell.
So my name is Carolina. Carolina, I know, very like Spanish name, right? Carolina.
We are inside the cathedral courtyard. Everything is so ornate. So this cathedral is one of the biggest in the world. Depending on how you count it, it's the third biggest in the world. And the gold altarpiece at the front is the largest altar in the Christian world. Coming in here, you actually do feel really small compared to the gargantuan pillars and just the scale of the building.
This is a really impressive place. It's beautiful.
It's very beautiful, very ornate. It was built in the 16th century, but they did do some restoration after the 1755 earthquake.
Yeah. And similar to the Mosque Cathedral of Cordoba, it was built on the site of a really, really big mosque.
Exactly. The mosque is much older, and the tower that stands today, the Giralda Tower,
Is a minaret.
it's a minaret, yeah, from the mosque.
So they decided to not put any tower anymore, and they revealed this organ, right, in the 18th century. That's the reason. It's so amazing, actually. It's still in use by different meetings.
The next stop on our tour is the remains of Christopher Columbus. That's pretty crazy. Christopher Columbus obviously traveled a lot during his life, but he traveled around after death as well.
Apparently they at first wanted to bury him in one of Spain's colonies in the New World, which, it would be fitting, so they buried him in the island of Hispaniola, Dominican Republic. When Spain lost that, he got moved to Cuba. When Spain lost that, he got kicked on right back home to Spain. And so there's something poetic about that to me.
Now he's here, but only part of him.
They can only prove that about 20% of the remains that are in that tomb are actually Christopher Columbus via DNA testing. The rest is a mystery.
They don't know who it is. That's insane.
That is. Kind of makes sense to me.
Next step, we're going up the tower. I'm really excited.
And there's only 17 steps.
Only 17 steps.
So we learned that the reason this minaret has ramps instead of steps is so that a donkey could climb it, so that the boy who would go up to sing the call to prayer wouldn't have to do this crazy climb 5 times a day, and also wouldn't be completely out of breath by the time he got to the top. Let's see if we are.
There are more than 30 bells up here, and in about 2 or 3 minutes, it'll be 3 o'clock. And we could be in for a serious bomb. Well, those bells are our signal to head back down. The tour guide will be waiting for us. So next we are going to leave the cathedral and Giralda area, and we're going to go just across the street over to the Alcazar. That's the Islamic fortress and palace, the royal palace area from the time of the Moors. So where we are now, this was a Muslim palace from the 11th century till the 13th century. And they continued to use this place even after the end of the Muslim era in this town. This Alcazar is in fact still owned by the royal family of Spain, who come here 3 or 4 times a year. And that makes this the oldest royal palace still owned by royals. Still a royal palace. So actually, to be clear, what's here now is 3 royal palaces built by the Christian kings, and these were built on top of the remains of the old Moorish palace. Here we are in the king's bedroom, and of course it's covered with tiles because it's beautiful, but also to keep cool in the summer. Well, what did everybody think?
It was a very interesting tour. I feel like we saw a lot, and you could probably spend way more time in the cathedral and in the royal palaces here. Like, there is a lot to see, and even though we just did a 3-hour-long walking tour, I feel like we just saw the surface.
Well, and it was a huge amount of information even to absorb just from our guide. She had a lot of facts, a lot of history to convey. So even still, I feel like I absorbed as much as I could from what she was saying.
It definitely feels like Seville has a lot of history and a lot of culture to offer. Seville has been amazing, but now it's time to continue on our Andalusian road trip.
We are back on the road.
For our next stop on our Andalusian road trip, we are here in the province of Cadiz, just outside the city of Cadiz, visiting the Balio Claudia archaeological site. Because you know, me and Dan love Roman ruins, and there are some cool ones here to see. And in such a gorgeous setting. There's rolling green hills and rocky cliffs, and across the water here, you can actually see the coast of Africa. So cool. At this point, Dan and I have seen our fair share of Roman ruins, but I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen Roman ruins in quite such a stunning setting.
I know, this is beautiful. The sheep.
Yeah, there's
the
like
beach,
the mountains. Yeah, like this is incredible. This is such a beautiful location.
It's a beautiful spot for a Roman city.
Yeah.
So where we're standing right now is just outside of the city wall. And in fact, we saw the aqueduct just up there that fed water into the city. And then this was the exterior. It was a walled city. We are officially crossing into the city now.
Balio Claudia was an ancient Roman town in what the Romans called Hispania, now, of course, Spain. The site lies on the Strait of Gibraltar, and in its time was a prosperous fishing village and a key trading link for the Mediterranean.
Here in the south part of the city, there would have been a fish salting industry. And these houses had actually shops that faced the street, and then the houses were behind those shops. This is actually a pretty extensive fish salting industry they had here. Like all of these buildings would have been primarily for salting fish. That's what all these like pools were for.
This place would have been a bustling port of activity during the time of Emperor Claudius, around 40 to 50 AD, but was abandoned around the 6th century after taking a lot of damage from earthquakes. As it was abandoned, that meant no more modern additions were ever made to the city, leaving the ruins in great condition for learning about what life was like in the Roman Empire. So along our drive here over towards Gibraltar, we've pulled off at a viewpoint, and I believe we're currently at one of the narrowest points here in the Strait of Gibraltar, right?
That's right.
So it's probably just about 13 kilometers between the edge of the land here and the African coast behind us.
Yeah, Morocco on the other side.
And you can see it just completely clearly. It's really cool. You thought we were just getting 2 countries out of this trip. Little did you know, secret, third, off-seas territory of the UK. So we're just gonna go walk across a runway. Like an actual airplane runway, not like a model runway. Let's go.
This is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Be just out here walking across the tarmac. So my understanding is the planes need to land, I guess, east-west because of the direction of the wind. But this peninsula is so narrow that there's not enough space to have the runway on the peninsula. So they actually had to extend the peninsula into the sea, like artificially make it longer so that they could land planes here. We're going all the way up. How you feel now?
It'll be alright.
Meters up to the top of the rock will take approximately 6 minutes. You should place rucksacks at your front to protect your belongings.
We've been trying to avoid pickpockets this whole trip, and now we gotta avoid the monkeys.
Literally, humans can't even pickpocket me. There's no way a monkey's getting me.
They won't respect social distance.
No, not at all.
All of a sudden, Kate will be wrestling a monkey to the ground.
I love all the monkeys here. They're so cute.
This next thing is gonna be really cool. This is the Skywalk. If the cable car made you nervous, this could make you even more nervous. It's not for those with fear of heights. For all the warnings, they're pretty chill. We got so many warnings about you guys, but you're nice, right? Friendly? They're friendly. Having conquered the skywalk, it is now time to go to St. Michael's Cave.
So people around here have known about St. Michael's Cave for a long, long time. Apparently the Greeks thought this was the entrance to Hades, and in later years, legends developed that this cave actually was the beginning of a tunnel all the way to Africa across the Gibraltar Strait. And that's how people back then thought the monkeys arrived here, via a tunnel from Africa. It's just amazing to think about what it must have been like to try to explore these caves before, you know, a flashlight. Like, it is pretty unreal.
Nowadays, there's a theater that seats 400 in here and a light show. I mean, there's lights all through the cave, but they have a projection show here. I think the lights in the cave are so cool. This cave has been known as St. Michael's Cave for hundreds of years, apparently named for a similar one in Italy. But they've done a really good job in the light show of lighting up an angel in a part of the cave that really does kind of look like an angel.
We are descending. We are continuing our walk downwards here, and I feel like at some point we're going to be faced with a pretty big climb back up if we want to take the cable car down again. But
Go down, we have to go up.
exactly. Our next stop on the tour of the Gibraltar Nature Reserve is Windsor's Suspension Bridge, which is going to be yet again a challenge for those of us that are not such a big fan of heights.
Ground's wet, no high heels,
Bouncy.
no running or jumping permitted on the bridge.
Here we go. Oh, it is a bit bouncy.
There's a bit of give there.
We survived the suspension bridge. We got across. It wasn't so scary after all.
Now we just have to survive the monkey's den.
Oh man. We're now headed into the heart of the monkey's den. Everybody protect your belongings. They could try to steal this camera and start their own YouTube channel.
And there's a baby monkey. The macaques seem mostly pretty friendly, and there's some really cute baby monkeys. I saw one being groomed by its mother. However, there are lots of warning signs. We've been told, keep your backpacks in front of you. They will try and steal your stuff. They're attracted to grocery bags because they think there's food in there. So these are Barbary macaques. Oh, are they fighting back behind?
No, I think one just jumped out of the tree. Wait, you gotta see what's going on here.
He's got a branch. We know that there's been a strong population of them here on Gibraltar since at least 1704, when the British captured this area. And for there to have been such a strong population here in 1704 means that people would have been feeding them. So they've been welcome residents here for a long time. However, nobody does really know how they ended up here. These monkeys are from Africa, and somehow they've made it to Gibraltar.
And they're totally isolated here, right? Like there's none anywhere else in Spain.
Exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
they're completely isolated up here on the Rock of Gibraltar.
That's really interesting. We've reached our final stop of our Gibraltar Nature Reserve tour, and that is the old Moorish castle. So let's go in.
Here come the weary travelers. I think this is good for you and stuff. Well, we have come down off the rock and come to our final destination here in Gibraltar. This is Europa Point, the southernmost tip of Gibraltar.
technically part of Andalusia, but we wanted to show you our Gibraltar trip while we were down here, so.
I guess it depends how you define Andalusia. If
Yeah.
you're talking about the Spanish province, then no.
Yeah.
But the geographical region,
That like the, you know.
the Andalusian mountains.
Yeah, all Andalus, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah. As we depart Gibraltar and head for our final Andalusian destination, let's rewind a couple of weeks and show you Dan and I's adventure in Cordoba, where we visited before my parents arrived. This morning we are exploring Cordoba. We're taking a walking tour of
Of the Mexica, the mosque cathedral.
Come along.
We're beside it right now. This is the outside.
It's literally directly across from our Airbnb. It's so cool. We can see it out our window.
I was really enjoying the view from our Airbnb while we were working yesterday. All the people walking up and down the street. Such a cool spot.
So right behind me here is one of the most significant historical sites in the Jewish quarter here in Cordoba, and that is the old synagogue. Now this is a really fascinating building because it's a Jewish temple, but it is decorated with very Arabic style artwork. And later on, after Christians took over the city, it eventually was used as a Christian chapel. So it's this crazy intersection of different cultures, religions, and you can see it right on the walls. Cordoba, like the rest of Andalusia, is heavily influenced by Islamic Arab culture. From about 700 AD until, in some regions, the mid-15th century, much of the Iberian Peninsula was ruled by the Umayyad Caliphate. The Muslim conquest of Spain is a long and complex history that we were continually fascinated by throughout our travels in Andalusia. In fact, the name of the region comes from the Arabic Al-Andalus. Cordoba was an important capital of Al-Andalus and arguably an important capital of the world. At its height in the 900s and early 1000s, it was the second largest city in Europe and a huge cultural and economic center.
The architecture of this place is astonishing.
This is like no building we've ever been in before.
This is so cool. And a really crazy history. Like, this building has been in continuous use for well over 1,000 years.
The construction of the Great Mosque began in the year 785, and it has undergone many expansions since then. Today, it is the third largest mosque in the world. The mosque was converted to a cathedral in 1236 when Cordoba was captured by the Christian forces of the Kingdom of Castilla, the precursor to modern-day Spain, during the Reconquista, or Reconquest. One of the coolest facts, I think, is that all of these pillars, or at least a lot of them, were repurposed from ancient Roman palaces. And so they all kind of have a unique, like, different look to them. And the plinth and capitals on each pillar are also kind of unique because, again, they were just salvaged, and really reminds me of the Alcazaba in Malaga, where they just repurposed old Roman stuff into.
We are on our way to the Pièce de la Résistance.
This is one of the most popular tourist attractions in all of Spain. It's definitely part of the top 3. We are here in Granada to see Alhambra.
Let's do it. We're almost here. We've enjoyed the views from the bus and the fact that we didn't have to walk up the hill.
Today at Alhambra, we are taking a guided walking tour through the entire complex, which I recently learned is not just one palace, but actually an entire medieval Arab city. So there's a Medina section, there's a military section, there's the summer home of the Sultan, and then the actual palace itself, which is the most famous part. As soon as we enter the summer home of the Sultan, I'm just totally blown away by the incredible views here. You can see the entire Alhambra with the city section and the palace section, and beautiful views of the mountains in the background as well. The summer home also includes these really impressive gardens. There's like an agricultural kind of garden section, and then of course the interior beautiful decorative gardens. But they actually grew a lot of food here, which we're learning was actually sold. Like that's part of how they funded the palace, was through the sale of the crops that they grew here. Another striking feature of the palaces is all of the water. Now obviously there's fountains here with modern pumps, but they would have had fountains back in the day too that were just gravity fed, because the water was actually coming to Alhambra from the nearby Sierra Nevada mountains. They're actually snow-capped even right now, so you can see that that would definitely be the main source of water for the palace. And the entire place is set up so that the water can filter through all of the sections from the highest elevation to the lowest. And as we walk through the entire Alhambra, you can see the water channels that direct water to irrigate the plants and to bring fresh water to all different parts of the city.
I'm just blown away by the scale of this entire place, like the gardens and the castle and the buildings. It extends a huge distance. I think he said 34 acres is what this place covers.
And what's so impressive is this is one of the most well-preserved sites of like a medieval Muslim city. Like even in, he was saying like Syria, Iran, like those places, like there aren't examples like this that are so well-preserved.
It's super unique, and I can understand why this is the #1 most visited site in all of Spain. The most visited tourist attraction in all of Spain. Our guide said over 8,000 people come in here every day.
And you can totally see why.
It's busy. There's a lot of people.
But it's incredibly impressive. I mean, the mountains in the background, the views of the city, and like the very, very well-preserved architecture. Like, it's definitely worth a visit. I can see why it's so popular.
Totally.
Another interesting fact that we learned from our guide about the like Arab presence in Spain in general was that actually only 10% of the people coming into Spain at that time were actually Arabs. Like the majority of them were Berbers, Moroccans, people from North Africa who were essentially moving into Spain across the Strait of Gibraltar because there's just more favorable conditions here. It wasn't as harsh of a place to live as the North African desert.
So in case you haven't been following our history lesson, the period of the Muslim rule here in Granada was from the year 711, when the Muslims conquered the whole Iberian Peninsula in just 5 years, till here in Granada until 1492. Granada was the last stronghold, the last holdout of the Muslim Empire here on the Iberian Peninsula. Right behind me there, that's where the Sultan's throne was.
So today, on our last day here in Granada, we are going to check out the cathedral and go on a little walking tour and just enjoy the absolutely beautiful weather that we have here in our final days in Andalusia in Spain.
I think we're going to relax a little bit and end the vlog here.
We hope you've enjoyed coming along on this amazing trip, not only in this Andalusia road trip video, but also the past 2 months traveling through Spain and Portugal with us. It's crazy that it's coming to an end already. I can't believe it.
Shout out to you guys who've watched every video. Shout out to our family back home who are the biggest fans out there.
If you haven't seen some of our Spain and Portugal series, we will link the first one here at the end of this video so you can check that out and watch them from the beginning.
If you have watched them all, send the link to a friend. Share our channel and help it grow.
And let us know in the comments if you've been watching so we can say a personal thank you. And as always, thanks for watching. We love you all, we miss you back home, and we will see you
in the next video.
Wherever we're headed next. Make sure you stay tuned to find out. Bye.